v0n host the biggest sand race in Europe, where over 1,000 riders come to compete. Now, the course consists of a huge straight as far as you can see, and then man-made dunes. It's a real test on the bike's reliability and riders' sheer determination. Now, the quads and sidecars are out at the moment, then it's the turn of the solos, and I'm taking part.
This is the 19th year now, and as long as the weather holds out, every year is a good year.
Now, what actually happens at this event, Phil?
It's the end of season bash for the motorcycle off-road vicinity, and we just run a 3-hour enduro on the beach at the end of the season to totally destroy the bikes. As simple as that.
What type of rider actually takes part in this event?
We have all sorts of riders. We have the top 100 boys in the country, motocross riders, enduro riders. We have novices, first-timers, as yourself, and heading for the £1,000 prize money.
Now, you've actually taken part in this event. You know, what's it like to take part?
Very difficult, hard, and energy sapping for the first hour until you start to get into the pace of things. And once the dunes flatten out a bit, you tend to pick up more speed. But generally, it is a hard 3 hours on body and machine.
How long does it take to actually or physically build the course before the race day?
About 3 to 4 days. We start on Tuesday, finish Thursday night, Friday morning, and we have a lot of touching up to do. Depending on the type of entry we get, we sort of alter some of the jumps to suit. We try to make it safe but hard.
What's the big difference between motocross and then coming to do a sand race?
The sand race, especially here at Weston-super-Mare, is mainly an endurance race. It's a 3-hour endurance race, extremely demanding physically and mentally. People will get problems with fatigue, bike failure, mechanical failure, all that type of problems will arise in a race like this. 800 solos or more, possibly. It's just vast. The race is vast.
Is there anything riding on sand as a technique which is different than, say, motocrossing?
Yeah, the sand technique is different to the hard pack circuits we ride on. As regards, you've got to get your body in a different position on the bike, and the hardest thing is sand is keeping the bike going in a straight line. It automatically wants to turn to the left or the right, so you tend to sit further back on the bike and try and keep the front wheel fairly light on the sand. The technique with sand is, it doesn't matter where you are in the circuit, don't back the throttle off. Try and get a good line at the first dune, try and get a straight line at the first dune and just fire at it. As soon as the front wheel tends to get to the top of it or gets over it, back on the throttle and drive your way down the other side.
So the secret for me then is just sit back a little bit, and as you come to the dunes, just plan your position.
That's
and
right.
Get away from, well, as I say, away from everybody as much as possible.
That's it. As soon as a gap opens up, there'll be like a dozen people going for that gap anyway. You just got to hope that you're in front of the dozen.
Excellent. Sounds like absolute chaos.
It is chaos. You'll experience it now in about an hour's time.
33, all roads in, 351 there in third place, Nick Sullivan.
Well, all the chaos is kind of getting going started. We're having a drivers' meeting in a couple of minutes, which I assume they're going to tell us little bits about marshalling and stuff, but I'm extremely nervous. I've seen the bike for about 2 minutes. I've never sat on it. I've never ridden on sand. I'm just about to take part in the biggest sand race in Europe. So as you can imagine, my nerves are absolutely shattered. I've got all the equipment I need. Got tear-offs on the goggles, which I believe down the end of the first straight, I should need to be tearing quite a few off. So let's just wait and see. I'm going to go and compose myself now, so I'll see you a bit later. Jason, out of these 800 riders, is it just me that's nervous?
No, believe me, it's not, definitely.
Have you done the race before?
Yeah, I did it last year for the first time. I come the year before to watch, and as soon as I watched it, I thought, that's it, got to do it. And yeah, it's fantastic. Your nerves do go once you get down the straight for the first time, and the adrenaline takes over, and this is, well, fantastic.
Do you ever get nervous? I mean, it's my first race, but I'm actually quite petrified, to be honest with you.
Really?
Do you find yourself getting nervous at the races, or are you quite comfortable at it?
reasonably comfortable. Obviously the delay gets a little bit of apprehension. The start is possibly the worst part because there's 800 riders going up to a narrow funnel at the end. And you just hope that the bike stays together and keeps running, because if you're stopped and there's 700 riders coming behind you, there's chances are they're going to hit you.
Well, we're right at the front of the queue now. And the nerves are getting absolutely shattered, completely shattered. I'm not even sure where the bike is at the moment. I'm relying on Wayne here to go and find my bike for me. There's about 1,000 bikes just waiting in here. So it's going to be quite an experience. Well, I'm just trying to squeeze the last bit in before the race. I was trying to hope to actually conserve this water for later on in the race, but unfortunately duty calls, so excuse me one second.
It seems like in all these events I never get a good start, and this was no exception. I put it down to mechanical failure, but it turned out to be to my advantage. As I head off down the main straight, I feel like Billy No Mates. People warned me of the hazard at the first dune, but nothing could have prepared me for the chaos. The mayhem as the other riders struggled to get through the gridlock. Guys were getting plastered in sand, but were relentless in their determination to get over any obstacle. As my race comes to a stop at the back of the pack, let's see what Don's racing about on.
This is a Scott, a 1928 model called the Flying Squirrel, a well-known name. It is water-cooled, twin-cylinder, two-stroke of 598 cc. It was designed by a chap called Alfred Scott. He's a Yorkshireman, and most of these machines were built in Shipley. He had served an engineering apprenticeship. He was a natural designer and an inventor. A very unusual combination. And he took all of those skills and experience and put them into the design of this particular Scott motorcycle. In its day, because of what he produced, this wonderful engine, smooth, twin-cylinder, two-stroke in a duplex frame, quiet, fast, reliable, completely changed thinking for many people in motorcycling. Right, let's go through some of the features of this most unusual motorcycle. First of all, from the very early days, Alfred Scott used telescopic forks. I know it looks as if it's a girder frame, but the girder is supporting this part which moves up and down, pure telescopic. Another item of considerable interest is this beautiful honeycombed handmade radiator, synonymous with Scott's, used from the very early days because they were water-cooled. Beautiful works of art. Two-stroke engines need oil to be mixed with the petrol to lubricate the engine. Alfred Scott fitted an oil pump from the very early days in order to dispense the oil and to circulate it easily, cleanly and efficiently. This is a kickstart. Alfred Scott was one of the earliest users of this device. People were astonished because at that time, in the main, they were starting with very strange devices and very often with a bump start. Scott had a very good background. They won the TT, they were very good in hill climbs and trials. And when you sit on this bike, that comes through. It's a slim bike. The weight is low down. It's easy to maneuver. It's so nimble. It flicks through the bends. You can go from one side to the next bend to the other. It just is a lovely bike. It comes through not just in the engine, which is smooth and torquey. You can drop down to 10 miles an hour in top gear, but it also comes through in the braking. It has enormous big brakes, and they pull you down very, very quickly because the bike is so light. And considering that it's 1928, the bike does everything, really. It is a delightful machine. One other thing about the Scott I should mention is its noise. It's a particular howl, and it's called the Scott yowl. I suppose if a bike has a soul, this is one of them. I have an admission to make, and that is that I do like Scotts. From the time I first saw one, it was love at first sight. I was newly married, I was in a cafe with my wife, and I saw one leaning against the wall opposite. I had to go and look at it. It was so beautiful to me, so original, such form and so pleasant that I decided that in the fullness of time, one of these I would have. And so it happened, and I've had one more or less for the rest of my life. It really was love at first sight. I still love my wife too, of course.
Race was well underway, and I was really struggling with the riding technique on this type of surface. I gingerly made my way over the course, and I was surprised at how exhausted I was after tackling just a few dunes. Taking part in this event was Kirk Nicol, who's won 7 British motocross championships and has been a runner-up in 4 world titles, and I caught up with him just before the race.
Kurt, how many times have you actually been involved in the sand race?
This will be the 5th time I've been to Western. I did the big race in France as well once at the 2K, so it'll be my 6th big sand race.
What actually is it that brings you down here when you're competing on the international circuit, and here there's a lot of novice riders as well? What brings the guys down here to compete?
It's a big race. It's in the off-road calendar. It is a very big event. It takes a lot of publicity. So, I mean, basically the teams and the manufacturers who want to come down. I work for KTM, and for KTM this represents a big race in the year, probably bigger than some of the national championships as an individual thing.
Is there a hazard of driving on sand that is completely alien to you?
Not really, not the sand itself. I mean, we're quite used to racing sand as on motocross tracks. The difference is purely and simply the number of riders and the difference in ability. I mean, normally if I go to a start line, there'll be 30 other riders on the start line, all of pretty similar ability. And you know, you might see them at the start, you may even crash at the start and have to pass some of them, but they're all going pretty much the same speed. Here you've got guys that are going very, very slowly.
Do you find it quite frustrating as you come into one of the dunes and there's a load of, unfortunately, novice guys who have piled up and they're all... I mean, do you find that quite frustrating? Does it affect your flow?
No, it's part of the race. It ends up as being part of the challenge. I mean, you've got to look for a way through, because what tends to happen here, there will be a big queue on the second lap. You know that before you start, and you've got to find your way around it. Other things that happen in beach races, I mean, the fences get knocked down inevitably, and when somebody knocks a fence down, everyone goes through it, and you've got to be sharp enough to not be the guy who's stuck on the top of the dune when everyone else is going inside you through the fence. So, I mean, it's all part of it, and you have to look for it all the time.
Do you find it very physical when you're racing? I mean, do you physically get tired?
Yeah, well, this is a very tiring race, 3 hours. I mean, motocross is 35 minutes. At the end of it, you know you've done a race for sure. and we'll probably end up doing 22, 23 laps, something like that round here, and it's very, very physical, yeah.
What are you hoping to finish today?
I'm hoping to win, of course, but I've never done particularly well here. I'm not a guy that likes to take huge risks jumping over the top of slower riders, so that's my downfall normally, but I've got a chance. I've got a good bike this year. I've never done it on a four-stroke before, and I think the four-stroke will be much better down the beach, so fingers crossed.
Oh, great. I shall look out for you going past me.
Okay.
An hour into the race and some riders are suffering from fatigue. Just manhandling your bike out of deep ruts and kick-starting the machine is exhausting. In an endurance race, the bikes have to be refueled, and it gives riders a chance to take on fluids. Unbelievably, it took me an hour to complete my first lap, where the top boys would have completed several.
This may be the biggest and dirtiest event of the year, but I did take part in an event where size didn't matter.
I'm here at Kingsham Raceway in Wales. Now I'm here to experience a track day with a little bit of a difference. This is Minimoto. Ian, you've been involved in Minimoto for over 5 years. What actually is it?
It's the sport itself is all about racing miniature motorcycles, a third of the scale of a proper bike, powered by a little 39cc engine. It's all about fun, just low cost.
Now, where did the sport actually originate from?
The majority of it originated from Italy and Japan. Don't know which one came first, but they've both been doing it an awful lot longer than we have in England.
It seems like a great training sport for young kids who want to get into road racing.
It's definitely a young road racers training ground for sure. There's a lot of the Italian riders such as Valentino Rossi and Max Biaggi have all done mini-motos, and for quite some time, not just a couple of years, they were involved for 5-6 years before they went on to proper bikes.
Dave, within this sport, you're classed as a heavy. What does all that mean?
Well, basically, I'm above 12 stone. That's the category for my size. It's a heavy group. And then you've got the lights at 10.5 stone. And then you've got the super lights around about sort of 9.5 stone. So I battle to stay within my weight group to make myself competitive.
Is it similar to a jockey then? Do you actually have to, sort of when you go home, somebody says, oh, you're going to show some fish and chips, and you think, oh no, I can't do that, I'll go for a salad. I mean, is it something you have to do?
I do, yeah.
You leave the sweet stuff alone, do you?
That's it, yeah. Stay away from the cakes.
Hey, Richard, you're in the super light category. Now, it actually is just literally a miniature-size racing bike.
Yeah, that's right.
Obviously, it's got all the fairings on here. I mean, is this for show, or do you find yourself getting behind and...
No, it's just for show, really. I mean, no way you're going to get your head behind that screen. It's just impossible.
It is just for show.
Yeah.
And, I mean, do you find yourself having to slipstream people for overtaking? Does that...
You can do that, yeah. Obviously, if, like, the guy in front's a bit big, you can get him right. Try and tuck yourself right up, and you can actually feel the slip.
Can you?
Just feel yourself get sucked in and then pull out and overtake.
Now, I noticed you were leaning forward on the front of the bike when you're going down the main straight.
Yeah.
Why do you do that? I mean, if you sit further back, do I detect that the front wheel will come up then?
Yeah, if you're coming out of the corner and you're not crouched over the front of the bike and you lean back a bit, it's a little bit woo. I mean, you don't have to hang off it as much as a big bike because you're so low to the ground already and your knees are half sticking out.
And do you get your knees down?
Yeah.
There?
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome.
You think racing has a glamorous side, but this is reality. Throwing on a pair of leathers in the back of a car while the weather starts to rain. I've very fortunately been given a bike to go and have a go, but it's on slick tyres, the rain's just started, and they're about to start racing, so let's stick a pair of leathers on, see how we get on. Chris, can you give me any tips that you do, that maybe I might be able to use your tips to go a bit quicker?
In the rain, it's not very good taking the proper lines that you do in the dry, because when a lot of bikes slide in the rain, they leave a load of rubber on the track and it makes you slip. So the best thing to do is either go on the inside of it or the outside of it to stop you coming off.
So swing wide out of the corners then, do it? Use all the,
Yeah.
is it using all the track then, is it?
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. Oh, well, I'll give that a go then. Unfortunately, the weather is very much against us today, so I've had to actually put a waterproof on because it really is lashing down. But I'm equipped, I've got all my gear on, and now I'm ready for the race. Well, I have to say, I do feel a bit like a gorilla on a sort of circus bicycle. But it's a very strange sport, this. You have to contort yourself into an unbelievable position to actually ride the bikes. But once you get going, it's very competitive. It handles exactly the same as a sports bike. And I could do with a little few more horses for me to give it a bit more of a kick. But great sport, very enjoyable. Well, unfortunately, as you can see, the heavens really have opened, but hey, it's Minimoto.
The Western Sand Race is a strange event. It's very competitive for some, and for others, just a finish would be a result. An endurance race of any form is about a personal goal. This event really illustrates determination at whatever level you enter. As the race grinds to a halt, I'm one of the 690 riders who finished out of 1,000 starters. Wayne Partington came a respectable 168th after being held up by a few back markers. Kirk Nickel came 10th after leading the race for 2 laps and then experiencing mechanical problems. And the event was won by Ben Taylor.
Well, there you have it, sand racing. I was told from the start it was endurance racing, and it really is. I can only admire the guys that have actually spent 3 hours getting around this track, because I was knackered after a couple of laps. All I want to do now is actually thank Phil Roberts for his pit crew and his team, who've been absolutely amazing today.